Hello everyone, how's it going? I am WoWcrendor, and welcome back to another episode of Fishing with Crendor. We are on episode 20. That is a lot of episodes, and joining me today is Lore.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm here.
You are indeed here. At least I hope so, otherwise
this would be weird. How would I even be talking?
Not again. So I'm glad to have you on. And
yeah, this is cool.
Why don't you tell everybody what you do and who you are?
So, my name is Lore, also known as Josh Allen. I am a World of Warcraft community manager. Before then, I was a YouTuber and streamer full-time. Used to run a little site called Tank Spot. Made a whole bunch of raid guides. People seemed to like them. It was pretty cool. And before that, I melted plastic for a living, so that was cool.
You melted plastic.
Yeah.
Do tell.
I should mention before we continue, just to make sure that everybody in the policy departments at Blizzard is happy that I am speaking on behalf of myself and not on behalf of Blizzard Entertainment. This is just me being me, doing me stuff.
All the legality things.
Like all the lawyers will be so happy. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey, I'm representing me and only me. I do not represent my company.
Yeah, it's actually like a Federal Trade Commission thing, like to prevent something called astroturfing. Like if you work for a company and you're talking about something related to the industry that company is in, then you have to, this is the most boring podcast ever. You have to identify yourself as an employee of that company just to make sure that you aren't like filling out fake Amazon reviews or whatever.
Yeah. It's like, wow, I sure love this Warcraft game.
That's really good. Yeah.
I mean, this is a show about fishing, so I mean, you're not gonna bore anyone. They're probably like trying to fall asleep anyway right now.
That's good. The sweet, dulcet tones of my voice and your voice can lull someone to sleep.
Exactly. Now let's get into copyright law.
Yeah.
So, tell me about melting plastic, 'cause now I'm curious.
All right. So the job I had before I went full time into the YouTube/streaming thing, I was an IT manager for a plastics recycler, but it was a company of like 6 people, so there wasn't really that much IT to manage. So I was just trumping myself up a little bit here. I was pretty good at my job, so when I fixed a computer, it didn't break again right away.
You're at the Geek Squad?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, in order to make sure I still had a job and I wasn't just, hey, we'll call you when something breaks, they, like, put me on, doing some QA testing for the plastic that came in. Because when you're a plastic recycler, a lot of times you will get, like, someone, like, the recyclers and, like, brokers, the people that you actually buy recycled plastic from, which was the company that I worked for, quite often they're not actually the people that grind up the plastic. They will get the ground up plastic from someone else. And it's just, like, this weird, like, basically just a broker. Like, we're going to buy a whole bunch of polypropylene and we're gonna sell it to someone else for more money because these two people don't know each other, so they can't talk to each other.
Is it bad to, like, my first thought with those types of things is, like, it goes to video games. Just like an RTS game or something where it's like, well, you got the processing plant, then you got the melting plant. You got to build those before you get tanks.
Yeah, it was basically the plastic equivalent of playing the auction house and just buying things that are below vendor value and turning around and vendoring them for money.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they put me in charge of like testing all of the random weird plastic that came in. And the way that you do that, if you don't have very fancy equipment, which we didn't because see previous note about company of 6 people, you take a little bit of the plastic and you burn it, and then you blow it out, and then you smell what the fumes smell like.
That sounds healthy.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. Really, really good for my brain cells. I've probably got some sort of weird brain cancer now that's gonna kill me at age 36 or something.
No, you don't. You have lung cancer.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I was like, you know what? Let's not this anymore. Let's do this YouTube thing.
Yeah.
Seems healthier. Sitting at home and doing nothing but playing video games. This is healthier than what I'm doing right now.
It's the life.
Yeah.
So how? Well, I guess we can start with like, how did you get into like video games in general?
Oh man. So when I was like a tiny baby, my parents had at first they had an Atari 2600, and I broke that. So then they had
How'd you break it?
I think so. Like my younger brother, he's like 3 years younger than me.
Yeah.
My dad had like built these weird little like things that you were supposed to use to sit because the 2600, it had a joystick with one button. That was how it worked. And you made these little things that you were supposed to use to sit the joystick on your lap, and then that way it was like this little board that you sat it in that the joystick like slotted into, so that basically it was like the world's first third-party accessory for a video game console. And that way you could sit in a chair and have this thing comfortably on your lap, instead of like having to hold the thing with one hand and also push the button with that same hand while you're moving the joystick around.
Yeah.
And my little brother and I didn't know that, so we used to just like put it around the joysticks, and then we would step on them because we were kids. I'm pretty sure we just broke the joystick.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't really remember very well. I just remember that we had a 2600 and then we didn't have a 2600 anymore. But that was how I got into gaming. I've literally been playing games since I was but a wee lad.
So, what about Warcraft? Did you play like the Warcraft RTS?
Oh yeah.
Before you played WoW?
Oh yeah. My first Blizzard title, which I didn't know was a Blizzard title until after I started at Blizzard, was actually a Justice League Task Force on the SNES, which was this like DC Comics like fighting game.
What?
Yeah, that was the first like actually I think there was Silicon and Synapse at the time, and so I played that. But yeah, like Warcraft, I played Orcs and Humans. I played like very, very briefly. I downloaded the demo. I launched it. I had no idea what was going on. I uninstalled it. And then I got into Warcraft 2 because a friend of mine had shown me StarCraft, and he was like, "Oh, but Warcraft's so much better." So we played Warcraft 2. And yeah, this is this is ages ago. But as I say that, I used to drive to his house to play it. So.
Oh.
I'm old.
You were old enough to drive way back in the day.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm curious now, because like you didn't like Warcraft 1, then.
It's not that I didn't like it. It's just I had no idea what any of the controls were. I was just confused.
Oh.
I was like, what do you? I clicked on this guy, and a little box showed up around him, and I don't know what to do now.
It's like I give up.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So with Warcraft 3, again, I'm curious because so many people I ask either they played the campaign or they just like played multiplayer. Like, what did you play?
It was mostly campaign, but I actually played quite a bit of multiplayer also. I kind of did a little bit of both. The campaign for me, like, so I kind of half-assed both.
Yeah.
The campaign I would play until I got to one of the missions where it was like, all right, now you have to build up a base and you have to go across and take your big army and go across and win the map.
Yeah.
And it, for some reason, just never occurred to me that you could like build more than one barracks or more than one like raider hut or whatever it was called or anything like that. Like you could have more than one of each kind of building. It just never occurred to me. So it would take me forever to finish those missions. Yeah. Because I would just be pumping out one grunt at a time and be like, well, I guess this army is good. 40 minutes later, and then I would lose that army, or I wouldn't be able to win with that army, and I'd be like, ah! And so I just used cheat codes to like skip through missions a lot. Yeah. And then the multiplayer, I played a bunch of that with a couple friends of mine, but we always did like really weird crap, like we're only gonna use siege weapons in this map. It's only siege weapons, and it wasn't like that we were like saying ahead of time, okay, this time let's only use siege engines this time, it'll be fun. It was that we just decided that was the best strategy. So that's what we did. Yeah.
This wasn't even like a fun thing. Like, let's have it all siege game. It's just like, guys, I got the new meta.
Yeah, exactly. Don't build anything but siege weapons. Never go to creep camps because they'll just wipe you out.
See, my thing when I played Warcraft 3 like a year ago was that I was doing my Let's Play of it, and I couldn't do that because people would yell at me. And they would tell me what I'm doing wrong. So I was like, oh, I'm doing this. And they're like, oh my god, you idiot. How did you not build this way and go get the item in the upper left that allows you to get the special unit? And I'm like, oh, all right. So then I just started like watching other people's videos to like know what to do. And I was like, all right. Oh, look, I stumbled across the special unit.
I'm just going to attack this set of trees here for no apparent reason. Oh, there's a hydralisk. Where did this come from?
Unbelievable. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird like going back and playing the campaign like after you've played WoW, because you like see these things like, whoa, like this is like in WoW, and then you're like, oh wait. This is you just have that realization, like, oh, this is where that came from.
Yeah,
I get it. So what about
Warcraft 3 game is just like this World of Warcraft.
It really is, because it's like, it's, I don't know, it's weird. So when did you play WoW? How old were you when you played WoW? Like when it first came out?
When WoW first came out, I was, oh Jesus, how old was I? I was 20 or 21 when WoW first came out. I can't do that bit. That's super easy math, and I can't do it in my head. But,
I feel your pain.
it would have been right around when I was 20 or 21, right around that area. But I played it in beta also, and for me it was like I was super into MMOs at the time. I was playing a lot of Star Wars Galaxies.
Oh yeah, Star Wars Galaxies.
Yeah,
I love that game.
and I was interweaving that with a lot of Anarchy Online, and I had a brief like 8-month stint in Asheron's Call 2. Not Asheron's Call, the game that everybody likes. It was Asheron's Call 2, the game that I hated. So I was really into that. And so I had been playing a ton of MMOs, and I was like, oh man, these MMOs are so much fun. The best part is how I stay up all night to kill 2 mobs. Yeah, this is so good. And then I was like, wait, Blizzard's making an MMO? This is gonna be the best thing ever. And turns out it really was the best MMO ever.
Yeah.
If I say so myself.
Yeah.
It really was really, really good. But yeah, I was so into, like, I remember like the job that I had at the time. God, what was I doing at the time? It was doing web development for a wheelchair accessible van like conversion manufacturer thing.
Oh. This is before or after the plastic?
This is before the plastic.
Okay.
But in a weird way, it got me into the job with the plastic.
Oh. It's just all connected.
I grew up in a very small town trying to find like IT related jobs. And so the pickings were somewhat slim. So it was like,
were
okay.
you like in Nebraska or something?
Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah, Battle Creek, Michigan.
Let's see.
Yeah. Which they made a show about recently and then canceled.
Oh. Nice.
Yeah. But I would like be sitting at work like refreshing the World of Warcraft website going, has beta started yet? Has beta started yet? Like I would have no indication whatsoever that beta would be starting. I just thought I'd check. It's been 5 minutes. I better check and see if beta started yet. Yeah.
Let's rewind a bit. So Star Wars Galaxies.
Yeah.
I really like that game.
Yeah.
Because I actually played Star Wars Galaxies after I played WoW for a bit. I played WoW and I got to like level 30. And then I had friends playing Star Wars Galaxies. So I was like, I'm going to try this out. And that was actually a really fun game. And I remember I played what are they called? Whatever Chewbacca is.
A Wookiee.
A Wookiee, that's what it's called. I played a Wookiee. And I had like a house. Because you could have housing in that game, like in the middle of nowhere on those giant plots.
Yeah.
Like, that was really cool. And you had your like speed bike. And I don't know, I really like that game. Then they patched it.
Yeah.
The death patch.
The death patch. Which even the people that liked the updates, it was still the death patch because everyone else quit and there wasn't anyone to do it anymore.
So that was kind of sad.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that. What did you do in that game?
In my long history of playing MMOs wrong, I decided I was going to be a master artisan and just craft things. And that was literally all I ever did, was just craft stuff. I would go out and try to do some combat from time to time. Then I'd be like, oh, but I could be spending all these points in my artisan tree instead and making speeders. And so I would just make speeders. And like this is how bad I was at just life in general at the time. Was that I didn't have any way to get a hold of the materials myself, or I was just too lazy to get a hold of the materials to craft this stuff myself, or like buy them off of the bazaar or anything like that. So I came across this guy one day who was like, "Hey, you're a master artisan." And I was like, "I am." And he was like, "You should make me a whole lot of speeders for free." And I was like, "Cool." So like for like 2 months, I basically worked for free for this guy. He would give me materials. I would turn them into speeders. He would then sell the speeders. And that was how I enjoyed this game. At one point, I was like, okay, I'm logging in every single day. I'm sitting in someone else's house because I didn't have my own house. I went into this other guy's house where he had all of the like crafting like utilities and stuff. Yeah. And just made speeders for like 6 hours. Maybe whispered a couple people and then logged off. And I was like, you know what? I'm not really feeling this.
Just living the dream.
Yeah.
Did you ever play MU Online?
I don't
ever
think so.
hear of it. Oh. So I just did nobody ever hears it. It's like a Korean MMO that came out back then, like a couple years before WoW. And it was like Diablo, but Korean MMO Diablo.
Oh.
And that was like the first MMO I played. And everyone I talked to like never heard of it. And then last fishing I talked to Smooth McGroove. And he actually played it. And I was like, wow. Someone finally understands. So I always ask.
Yeah. Yeah, around that time I was actually really into text-based MUDs. I was playing.
I don't know what that is.
It's like an MMO, but in command prompt.
Oh. How does that
like,
even work?
Yeah, it's like you do things like you say, go left, go right. And it'll be like, all right, you're in a room now. There's 3 other people here. You're being attacked by a shrew. And you're like, oh, punch the shrew. And okay, you punched the shrew. The shrew's dead now. You got $3. Congratulations. It's just all text-based.
Well, can you talk to the people?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're kind of, honestly, they're kind of the predecessors to MMOs. A lot of what Ultima Online and EverQuest was just like a visual realization of MUDs.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I never knew that.
Yeah, important thing about technology is that no one ever has a new idea. They're just building on someone else's.
Yeah, they really are. That's why I always love when people are like, this game copied WoW. WoW copied this game. This thing copied. I'm like, that's how everything works.
Yeah.
It's just, and they kind of just do their like own spin-off of that idea.
Yeah.
So, when you got into WoW, how addicted were you?
I was pretty seriously into WoW for a really long time. I did the whole like, oh, it's beta, I'm gonna stay up all night and play beta thing. Yeah, I was pretty like, the problem I had was that for a little while I was working night shift at this like restaurant, And so that came at a time that made it very difficult for me to do any of the raiding. So I got really, really serious into just like generic, like casual PvP at the time. This was after it took me like 5 months to level because I leveled as a dual wield protection warrior because
God.
I'm bad at this game. um, but yeah, I was pretty serious, and in the entire life of World of Warcraft, I have been unsubbed for all of about 3 days.
Oh wow.
And that was just because like I literally had no money in my bank account at the time. And I was like, well, I really don't want to overdraft, so I'm going to cancel my account until Friday when I get paid again. And those were a tough 3 days.
It's like rocking in a corner.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need it.
Going outside and just punching birds.
So, is that the first thing you made? Like the first class and race you ever made?
In live, yeah, I started with a warrior. In beta, I played a lot of different stuff in beta because I was like, I want to get a feel for how this game plays. So I jumped around between a lot of different characters. Spent most of my time on a troll shaman. But then in live, I was like, okay, I got very scientific about it. I was like, all right, I want to run a guild because I was a guild master in Asheron's Call 2, and I really liked that. Well, I was the head of an allegiance in Asheron's Call 2, and I was like, I like having this responsibility. This is fun. I'm in charge of things. People like me and look up to me, and I get to tell them what to do. This is great. So I was like, I want to start a guild in World of Warcraft. And like everything about my character, I looked at from the perspective of who is going to be the best like leadership figure for a guild. So I was like, okay, has to be a warrior because warriors can wear the best armor in the game. I wanted to be horde. So I was like, has to be a warrior then because warriors can wear the best armor in the game and it's the coolest looking armor, and then you look like you're the toughest, so you're in charge. And it has to be a Tauren because Tauren are the biggest, and so if you're bigger than everyone else, then you're in charge. And it has to have a single syllable name because then people will remember it. So I made a Tauren warrior called Sledge, and sure enough, I made a guild, and it worked.
I mean, I'd be pretty intimidated by Sledge the Tauren warrior.
Yeah, he's pretty intimidating, especially nowadays because I leave him logged out in his Spider-Man pajamas.
It just reminds me, I remember we used to have a Tauren warrior that was like our raid leader, and he had like something like that. His name was like Daemong or something, and I just remember everyone respected him. He had like the deepest voice of all time. Like we'd go on Vent and he was like, hey everybody, how's it going? We're just like, oh shit. It's like we gotta listen to what he says. It's like, don't pop the whelp eggs. Yeah. All right, we won't. So when did you just PvP for like casually PvP a while, and you made your guild, and then did you raid after that? Like, did you make your guild and then start raiding?
So I made the guild like right away, like within a few hours of servers being live. I made the guild. It was really funny. I was like, I first wanted to make a guild called the Filthy Landlords because I thought that was funny, but no one wanted to sign the charter. So I turned to this friend of mine who I was playing with at the time, and I asked her, hey, I need a really cool guild name. What's a really cool guild name? And she was like, how about something like Blades of War? And I was like, yeah, that'll work. And immediately got signed. And the entire time my strategy was, okay, I know this person, and I know she's going to pick a generic, lame guild name that people are going to look at and think is generic and lame, but we'll be more than happy to sign the charter for. So I was like, all right, got it, done. Immediately, everybody signed it. Had a guild like right away. Formed the guild, leveled, took forever, because I decided I wanted to level as protection, but I also decided that the fastest way to level as protection was to dual wield. Yeah.
It's amazingly logical choices.
Yes. Um, God. And then I ended up jumping to another server. I started raiding with a couple of friends on a couple of people on another server. We were just doing like 20 mans. And this wasn't until after like AQ20 came out. I was over there doing 20 mans. And I was like, wow, gee whiz, this raiding sure is fun. I should do more of this raiding. But then that guild kind of imploded, so I went back to my original server. And I was like, I want to raid. I should level a healer. So I leveled my priest, joined what is still my current guild as my priest just in time to kill Nefarian for the guild's first Nefarian kill. And I'm like wearing Tannerous greens, like questing greens. I'm like, well, I know. At this point, like I had learned the game well enough and done this would have been at least a year after launch. I learned the game enough that I was like, okay, now I'm actually pretty good at healing, and I was out healing all the other healers in my questing greens. So I was like, all right, we did it. We're here. We killed this boss. And that was when I got into raiding.
And so, how long after that did you start Tank Spot?
So I didn't actually found Tank Spot. It was started by a guy named Ciderhelm. And he started that, I think it was sometime in Burning Crusade, at the same time that I was doing a bunch of stuff with another new site, which was called Main Tankadin. Because during Burning Crusade, I decided I wanted to be a Paladin tank, because Horde got Paladins. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna level a Paladin because they're really good, and I kind of want to be a tank because it seems interesting. But if the Paladin tanks turn out to be terrible, then oh well, I accidentally leveled the best healer in the game. Because I was Horde, so of course Paladins were this magical creature that was full of everything. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna level this Paladin, and if prop Paladins turn out that they suck, then I'll be a Holy Paladin, and it'll be just fine. And it turns out prop Paladins did suck, but I didn't care. Paladin anyway. So I was doing a lot of stuff with this site, Main Tankadin. And started to earn a bit of a reputation there. I was like the head moderator for that site for a long time. Earned a bit of a reputation there as a protection paladin that was like, I was super into the theory crafting, and I was one of the farthest progressed paladin tanks in the world at the time. And then at some point, Ciderhelm at TankSpot, he started this TankSpot podcast, and he wanted a co-host who was not a warrior tank. And I was like, this seems like fun. I'll do this with you. And I had like done some just random silly podcasts with a friend of mine in the past. So I was like, I've got podcasting experience. Never mind, there was just a couple of us sort of like crooning into a microphone. But yeah, we started the TankSpot podcast, and that was how I got involved with TankSpot, which eventually grew into making video guides for TankSpot, which eventually grew into the Weekly Marmot, which then grew into all the other shows, which yada, 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 etc.
Yeah. So after all that, when did you decide to actually work for Blizzard? Or like, did they contact you, or did you like apply for them and then you were just like, oh my god, dream job?
So I did actually apply for them. It was at a time where, like, I don't know, like, I don't even remember how I found out about the job posting. Like, I think someone just linked it to me. Actually, thinking about it, I'm pretty sure it was Chris Hannell linked it to me. And he was like, hey, there's this job posting on Blizzard's website, and you would be totally awesome for this. And I, like, looked at it, and it was like, looking for someone with experience managing a community and also experience with video production. And I was like, okay, you could just put my name on it if you want.
Yeah.
That works too. And so I applied for it just as kind of this like, let's see how this goes. Let's see what happens. Mm-hmm. And then they apparently liked me enough to give me an offer.
Oh.
Yeah. Which I declined. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'll not come work for the game I've been playing forever. Yeah. So that's really cool. So I mean, a lot of people are like, man, I'd love to work for Blizzard, but I feel like after a while, with like any job, the like mystical like dream aspect of it fades, and you're like, I'm a community manager, or like I handle people yelling at me on forums all the time.
Yeah, like I already had built up a pretty thick skin from doing the YouTube thing for so long, as I'm sure you're aware that reading YouTube comments is actually how you contract cancer.
I'm aware. I'm very aware.
And I had gotten it into my head really early on, like, no, I'm going to read every single comment, because even if they're shouting at me, I need to know that they didn't like it. So I read like every single YouTube comment for the entirety of my YouTube career, which was a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think it's good to read the comments from time to time, but like it's also good to go, you know what? I don't care what people say about this one. I'm just putting it out and not looking at it from time to time also. But yeah, so I already had built up kind of a fairly thick skin for that, I think. And honestly, the stuff that people used to shout at me about, like the nice thing about when people shout at me on the internet is that they're like, as a community manager, is that usually they're yelling at me about the game instead of like, your hair looks stupid.
Yeah.
Why don't you get your hair cut? Which is the sound that people make in YouTube comments.
That is, I can verify. It's like a Taran noise.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like it was like I felt like I transitioned into it pretty well, but like you're talking about sort of, this is the company that I work for, and now this is a job instead of something that I just do for fun. It definitely can be tough to like make that adjustment sometimes. Like the big thing is like, yes, it's my job to like talk to the developers and talk to the community and do that, like do the whole facilitating the two-way communication, making sure that people know what like how people feel about it, like making sure the developers know how people feel about certain features in the game and so on. Like right now everyone hates RMD, so a lot of my time is taken up with telling Brian Holinka that people hate RMD, to which he says, yes, I know, I also read it. But yeah, so that sort of thing is definitely part of the job. But there's also a lot of just like maintenance-y stuff. Like, okay, this feature is coming out, so we need to plan a social media promotion around this feature that's going to last this number of days and has this much budget for advertising. But it just gets really like really into the, okay, I'm not just talking about games now, I'm doing a lot of other stuff as well, which takes some adjustment. I mean, I still, obviously, I like my job well enough. But yeah, there's a lot that isn't, it's not quite so you just get to sit and talk on the forums and Twitter all day. Oh, and you haven't been talking on Twitter for 2 days. You're not even doing your job. It's like, well, that's because I was doing so many other things.
Don't yell at me. But yeah, I think a lot of people always have that concept of like, wow, you're just living the dream, and really it's like, you know, you're just doing your job.
Yeah.
And after a while, it's like you go to work and you kind of, I feel like you almost forget you're working at Blizzard. I mean, I don't know because I haven't worked at Blizzard, but I mean, like when you do something for so long, it kind of just becomes normal, and you don't see it as like so special anymore.
Yeah, like for me, it took a long time for it to really actually sink in that I was like, oh god, I work at Blizzard. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like it's still every once in a while, like I walk into the building and I like look up and it says Blizzard Entertainment on the side, and I'm like, oh, this is where I work. This is what my job is.
It's like drop all your things, like, holy shit. This is where I work.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not like, it's a great place to work. Don't get me wrong, and it's much nicer than a lot of other places that I could be working. For example, smelling plastic.
Yeah.
But it's not like you walk in every day and it's just like Disneyland but Blizzard themed, and you're like, oh, we're just going to eat ice cream and drink beer and play Heroes of the Storm all day because we're Blizzard. Welcome. No, like it's actual work. There's actual work that gets done.
Yeah, I'm the one who plays Heroes of the Storm and eats ice cream all day. I don't. I wish I did. But yeah, that's really cool. It's like, I always feel like people want to have that like inside knowledge of like what actually is it like to work at Blizzards. That's kind of, it sheds some light on it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think people tend to have this perception of like, oh, he's a community manager at Blizzard, so what happens is he finds out everything that's gonna go in the game, and then he doesn't tell anyone about it for like. The logic seems to stop at he finds out everything that's going to go in the game, and like, we haven't come up with a reason why, but yeah. And most of the time it's more along the lines of, all right, his job as a community manager is he finds out that this thing just went into the game. And there needs to be some sort of messaging created around it because people are freaking out.
Yeah, it's more like crowd control.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So let's see. Let's go back to about WoW stuff. And let's say, what are some of your favorite memories that you've had while playing WoW?
Oh, man. So our first Nefarian kill was really memorable for me, just because it was the first, like, 40-man raid kill that I'd ever been on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was... It was one that we worked really hard on and eventually got down. And man, some of the stupid stuff that happened on that fight that we had to like work through. And it was 40-man raiding, so it really wasn't a question of did you do all the mechanics right. It was, did someone not do the mechanics wrong? There's 40 people, and if one of them does the mechanics wrong on a fight like Nefarian, you wipe. So like, for example, I was a priest, and the way Nefarian works is he, for anyone who hasn't done it like at level or just is unaware, he like picks a class and goes, all right, I'm gonna do an ability, do something special that's based on that class. So for like druids, he makes them all go into cat form for like 20 seconds or something. So all of your druids can't heal now because it's classic, so all your druids were healing. If you had a druid tank, then he just died. Or it would be like the warrior call, it stuck them all in berserker stance, so all of a sudden your tank is taking a whole bunch of extra damage. And I was a priest, and the priest call was if you did any like healing, other than I think renew and power word shield didn't count, but any like direct healing spells, it actually put a damage over time effect on your target, which stacked, and so you had to like stop healing when that call went out, or else you would kill the tank. And the number of times that the other dumb priests that we had at the time, like, just killed the tank because they weren't paying, like, and this is the sort of thing that nowadays you're like, how can you not know this? It's the most simple thing ever. The one mechanic you have to think of on this fight is when you get this debuff, don't cast your healing spells. Like that fight nowadays, people would go, the hell is this, Blizzard? What are you doing? You're just phoning it in. Is this a quest mob? What is this? But at the time, like, people really didn't understand the way raiding worked at the time. So you would have someone who was just like, oh, my job is just to push this button until the boss dies and collect loot, right? And so we had people who just healing, tanks dead. Like there was one guy who, God, I yelled at him so much because like he did the, I'm gonna heal the boss or heal the tank a whole bunch. Tank dies, and we're like looking through, like the tank is looking through his combat log because death logs didn't really exist at the time. So the tank is looking through his combat log, and he was like, I took a tick of this damage from more health than I have. And we were like, who was healing? And then like we're digging through other things, and we found out it was this one guy. And he was like, oh yeah, I was lagging. And I was like, how does lagging mean that you cast 10 spells? What kind of lag do you get? I don't understand. So that was like my first real like heavily memorable moment in WoW raiding, just because it was that moment of, oh my God, these people.
Which carried on to this very day.
Yeah, exactly.
But I feel like the reason is like less complex back then too is because you had 40 people, so they kind of like accepted like you're gonna have that one guy who just does that. We had a hunter who every single time his gun would break, because that was the Nefarian class call for hunters, was
okay, he's going to shout, and if he picks hunters, your gun breaks, and now you don't have a gun anymore. And so they had to like unequip their guns right before you did the call, and then equip them again afterwards, which is pretty complicated for Classic, by the way.
Yeah.
There was an add-on that did it for you, and so they had to have the add-on, and then it was fine. But still, like, there was always this one hunter who we'd just see him meleeing afterwards, and we'd be like, your gun broke, didn't it?
No, I just really enjoy melee. I actually went survival spec in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah. I'm going to use Raptor Strike.
Oh man, Raptor Strike.
Yeah.
First thing I ever played was a hunter, which was my Billy character from all my things. I made him, and then I was like, yeah, I got to level 60, and then everybody was a hunter. And so I was like, what's something everybody doesn't make? And it was priests. And so I'm like, I'm going to make a priest. And then I did. And that's the character that I've had forever. Fun times.
Nice.
So, like, what about like all the expansions? Like, did you play a lot in the expansions?
Oh,
or,
yeah.
like, raid and everything?
Yeah. I rated pretty seriously, like, 5 times, sometimes 6 nights a week through Burning Crusade. And dropped it down to 4, sometimes 5 during Wrath, and then 3, sometimes 4 during Cataclysm. Because every expansion I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And then every expansion I was like, okay, never mind, I still want to do this. So yeah, I rated, it was just serious hardcore rating, like server first, server second, all the way up through Cataclysm. Then in Mists, I decided I was going to go casual in Mists, and just do like 10 mans. But then I got the itch again, and I came back to rating like almost right away. And then halfway through Mists, I got hired by Blizzard. So that was kind of when that ended. Not because I didn't want to raid anymore, but because I didn't want to leave my guild. And they're an East Coast guild, or Eastern Time Zone guild, and I was moving to Pacific Time Zone, so I couldn't make the raid times anymore.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just tag along and hang out. And also now I'm working a full-time job, so it becomes a lot more of a commitment to spend that much time in a given week doing raiding.
Yeah. If you had to pick, though, out of all the expansions, which did you enjoy raiding in the most?
That was a tough question. I'm inclined to say Wrath. It would be TBC, Wrath, or Cataclysm were my 3 favorite. And they're kind of for different reasons. Like in Burning Crusade, I really liked raiding because we were like a top 50 guild at the time, and I was a protection paladin. So, like, I was doing this thing that literally no one was doing, and somehow getting away with it, which was cool. Like it's nice to be the special snowflake.
Yeah, I remember we had in Vanilla WoW, we had a Fury Warrior, and he like would always just get rogue gear. And just, like, he is like the one guy everyone's like, wait, you have a Fury Warrior? It's like your main DPS, but he would like out damage everyone, and we were like, yeah, dude, this dude's good.
Yeah, Fury was the best DPS at the time. It's just that everybody wanted to go 31-5-15 because that was a easier way to pick up the important talents in the protection tree, so you could still off tank and still do some damage.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird that I remember that.
It's like comes back to you like, oh yeah, 31-5-15.
Yeah, because you got to get Defiance in the protection tree. Yeah. So yeah, Burning Crusade I liked because we were like top 50, easy server first the entire time. And I was like, at worst, I was world 3rd paladin, protection paladin. Wrath was really fun because the instances were really, really great.
Yeah.
Like they were really good.
Yeah.
Like Ulduar was awesome. Ice Crown was awesome. I actually liked Trial of the Crusader. I got really bored of it really fast, but the first few times we were in there, I really liked it.
That's how I was too. I really liked it at first, and I was like, all right, we've done it enough.
Yeah. I'm clearing this 4 times every week. What the hell?
But like in hindsight, we were still farming Ulduar at the time for fragments of Valinir anyway. So if it had been like a full-on raid tier, there's no way we would have been able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cataclysm, I actually think had some of the best encounter design, like the individual encounters. A lot of them, like Spine of Deathwing was so good. Madness was so good also.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Dragon Soul fights, even though it was like totally, no, it was just Dragon Blight and then like a ship and then like one unique area.
Yeah.
Like the fights themselves were still really fun. The same with Firelands. Like the fights in Firelands were really, really fun and really unique and interesting. I think there's probably a case study to be made on what do people enjoy more? Do they like having 14 fights and some of them are annoying? Or do they like having 8 really, really, really good encounters?
Yeah. Did you rate it all in Pandaria too? Or was that like after
I did, yeah. Yeah, I rated all the way through the first tier. I forget what number it was. The Mogushan Vaults and then Heart of Fear and Terrace of Endless Spring. I rated all the way through that. And then I went halfway through Heroic Throne of Thunder before I got hired at Blizzard. I was rating hardcore all the way up to being hired at Blizzard though.
That's what ended it.
That's what killed it. Yeah. I got hired by Blizzard and immediately was like, I don't want to do this anymore. No. Oh god, I've had a peek behind the curtain. I know that the raids secretly run on pureed babies.
We knew it all along. Yeah. Let's see. So, I'm curious to how much you played Warlords of Draenor, and like what your thoughts are on Warlords of Draenor.
So I have been super casual in Warlords of Draenor, largely because I just don't have time to be as hardcore as I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a casual raid team that we've done. We've cleared pretty much everything on just on normal mode, just once a week, just for funsies really, but like still getting in there and doing some raiding, which is fun. We never got around to killing Archimond. Basically what happened was we were getting to the point where we were going to start working on Archimond, and then both me and our main tank, one of our main tanks, suddenly had to travel a whole lot for work and had to miss like a month and a half in a row of raids. And so then we were just like, you know what? Let's just call it for now. Maybe we'll come back later or something. But yeah, I've been kind of keeping up with normal mode in the raids. I played a Windwalker monk through the first couple, through Heimal and Blackrock Foundry. Then I switched to Destruction Warlock for Hellfire Citadel because reasons. I didn't really have reasons. I've been trying to keep up with PvP also. Like I played the Windwalker in PvP a lot last season, and then this season I've been trying to keep up on my mage as well. It's really just a time commitment thing for me now. Like I want to try to experience as much of the game as I can, and that means that when I do spend time in the game, like I have to kind of spread it around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have time to make a serious push for raiding, like PvP raiding. I don't have the time to really like put towards hardcore raiding.
Yeah.
Need to come up with words that don't sound exactly the same to mean completely different.
Raiding.
Yeah.
Raiding.
Oh, it was funny at the third NA online qualifiers broadcast. We had Brian Halinka on, and he was Bajiro was interviewing him, and he said something about how people were going to be able to get better gear by having higher rating or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And people thought he meant like, obviously most people were able to look at that context and go, oh, he just means that the people who are higher rated can get better gear. I don't even remember exactly what he said.
Yeah.
But then like some people were like, wait, did he just say that you have to be progressed further in raids in order to get better PvP gear? That was the point where I was like, we really need to come up with a better term.
Yeah. Like your score.
Yeah, exactly.
Your gear score.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go with that.
That sounds good.
Yeah, no one's ever used that term
No.
to mean anything that was received fairly negatively by the community before in the past.
Man, I remember doing, was it not Winter Mall. That's tower defense. What was it? All right, was it Winter? Wait, what was that thing called in not Alterac Valley? My mind is so confused. In Wrath of the Lich King, the PvP zone.
Oh, Wintergrasp.
Wintergrasp, that's what it was. That was I just remember after every Wintergrasp, when you captured it, there's just spams in the chat of being like looking for the vault of Arc whatever. It's like need 500 gear score or whatever. And I was just like, man, I'm at like 497. I'm like, can I go? And they're like, no.
It was funny. I was running an alt raid at the time, just like a pug/alt raid for Icecrown Citadel at the time. I was playing my hunter for that, and I had named my pet after one of the shamans in our main raid, who was like the best geared player on the server.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, when you then did a gear score check, because it had the name, like the guy's name was Erg, it had the name Erg as, oh, that person has a 690 gear score or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so, like, my pet would just show up in the list. And people would be like, whoa, someone's really geared in here. And I would send my little dog over to fight things. It was funny.
There's like, I think what's cool about WoW as well is like, my guy was like, I don't have a target. Is how each expansion kind of, like, it changed stuff, and yet a lot of it was the same, but it changed it enough where each expansion was like different. How like BC is a lot of like, the quests were kind of still grindy and just like vanilla, and yet the rating I feel is a lot better. And that was when 25-man ratings start, wasn't it?
In BC,
started.
yeah.
Yeah. And so everybody was doing that, and they had Karazhan as like, whenever I think of BC, I always think of Karazhan. That's just like the first thing I think of. I don't even. Yeah, what was after Karazhan? It was Gruul's Lair, right?
Gruul's Lair and Magtheridon's Keep, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. But for some reason, I love Karazhan. It might have been the music. I love the Karazhan music.
It was such a nice, like, looking instance too, and it was huge. Like, I honestly, I really miss having those sort of just like huge instances. Like Foundry and Hellfire are both pretty big. But like Karazhan, you could get lost in the place, like literally. Yeah. Maybe that's why they don't make them that way anymore. People were getting lost.
Guys were lost. It's like, all right, an hour later, it's like, oh, I found the way back.
Yeah.
And then Wrath, I felt like it was more of a, like, so focused on Arthas and like the Lich King story, and is like, I love that. I love it was like the whole Darth Vader type aspect with Arthas. It's like, yeah, we're all banding together to get Arthas. And then Cataclysm, it just felt like the world was ending. And you're just like, oh shit, dude, everything's on fire.
Yeah.
Like all the old zones you knew and like leveled throughout the all the WoW experiences were changed. And everyone's like, I don't like change. Then they look back on it and they're like, it was kind of cool. And I don't know, like I feel like each expansion just adds that different sort of element. Really, I don't know what I'm saying, but I feel like I know what I'm saying.
No, it's like, that's actually something that like gets talked about a lot at Blizzard too, is like how much change is the right amount of change. Like I remember Greg Street he talked about that a lot a few years back, where it's like, okay, obviously there's this section of the player base that likes the game how it is right now and they want the game to stay how it is right now. But there's this other section of the player base that's getting bored of how the game is right now because the game is almost 11 years old. Like, someone's going to get tired of it after a while. And so people will be like, okay, so we need to change things up. We need to make it interesting. We need to make sure that there's a reason for people to keep playing, because if it's the same game for 11 years, like, that game dies 3 years in because people get bored and they stop playing.
And man, I feel like that's what happened with Garrisons with me. I don't know about anyone else, but just me personally. Like when I first jumped into Garrisons, I was like, man, this is awesome. And I was like logging on every day. I'm like, right. And then after about a month and a half, I was like, oh, I missed a day. I'll just, I'll go do stuff tomorrow. And then I'm like, I didn't do stuff today. It doesn't really matter. I already got a bunch of stuff. And then I just like didn't log. And it was like, I don't know. That's what happened to me. Like, do you still do you still do garrison things or like?
Every once in a while. I don't really worry about doing it every day. I haven't worried about doing it every day for a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, and this might be an issue with just the way that things were presented in the game also, but I feel like a lot of people got burnt out doing a bunch of stuff they didn't need to do in the garrison really early on.
Mm-hmm.
Like your exact situation is the same sort of thing that I went through pretty quickly, where it was like, okay, I've logged in. And okay, I need to run around and I need to make sure all of my buildings have all their work orders going, and I need to go down into my mine and mine all my stuff, and I need to go pick all my herbs and run around doing all that, check all my follower missions and find out what the daily is for the stables. And after a while I was like, I've got a bajillion ore. Why am I still mining?
Yeah.
I have more herbs than I will use in 5 expansions. Why am I still picking herbs?
Yeah.
So pretty early on, I just kind of went, actually, I'm only going to do this if I feel like I need the stuff from it. And it turned into, for a long time, it was just I log in and I get my free potions from my alchemist hut. And I have a couple of buildings that I keep up on the work orders, and I check out my followers. And that was it for a long time. And then eventually, like, I got to the point where I have a ton of those potions now, and the followers were just for gold, but I have a ton of gold, and like the WoW token came out, so I was like, well, if I ever really desperately need more gold, I'll just buy a token and sell that. So I was like, all right, well, I don't need to do any of this anymore, and I just stopped doing it.
Yeah, but I feel like the developers and everyone learned from that. It's kind of like, all right, maybe we shouldn't have like everything located in one area where you don't have to really go out of it.
Yeah. Well, in Legion, there's Dalaran, which I'm super excited. I missed the Dalaran was my favorite capital city of all time.
It was my favorite too, because I loved the neutral cities. I loved Shattrath. I loved Dalaran. And when I went away from the neutral city, I was like, I want it again. Because I loved just riding around that city, and you saw the Alliance and the Horde there, and it just felt really cool because it felt like you saw all the server there and not just like your little segment of people. And you didn't, like, even with what was it, like Mists of Pandaria, like you had the 2 places, the 2 temple things, whatever they were. It felt like you didn't really need to go there. I was like, I'm just gonna go back to Orgrimmar. It's like in the end, like, I love those neutral cities. That's why I'm so happy they're coming back.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's sort of when it went from basically when it went into Cataclysm, and you had, okay, everybody's in Stormwind and Orgrimmar now, like, you never saw the other faction. If you were a PvE player especially, you rarely ever saw the other faction. You kind of forget that all those people are still playing. And then going into Pandaria, you had obviously the faction places, like you had the faction hubs, like you were saying. And now in Warlords as well, not only do you still have the separated faction hubs on Ashrand, but most people are still spending like their log out place is their garrison, and they don't see anybody, and it's easy to feel like, oh, I guess nobody plays this game anymore. There's a lot of people who still play this game, I'm just saying. But you don't see them, so you don't. It feels empty. So yeah, I completely agree. I think that I'm excited for the neutral city again in Legion, and just seeing other people around. Like, even if I can't talk to them, I want to walk up to a human paladin and slash chicken at him and be like, you're the enemy and we hate you.
And then he'll slash chicken back.
Yeah. And he'll say burr in chat, and I'll say kek, and then we'll move on with our lives.
And then you'll do a mammoth train.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, the Dalaran 500. That's the best way to kill time, just running around Dalaran.
It really is. So yeah, I'm pumped for that. It's really, I mean, it's cool at the fact that, like, everyone's like, oh, the game's so old, but it's like the game is also like still being played, and it's 11 years old. Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, for an 11-year-old game, it's still doing really well. And
yeah, definitely. Like, so there was obviously, like, the sub numbers came out and everything, and people were like, oh, this game is obviously dying, and it's like, name another game that still has this many subscribers after 11 years. Like,
Yeah.
I think we're doing okay, guys.
And like any other game would like kill for that,
Yeah,
which is kind of the ironic part.
yeah.
But man, I also just bought like they just came out with all the box art posters. You see all those?
Yeah.
So I got, or yeah, it's the covers of all the expansions and stuff. So I bought the first three. I bought Original and BC and Wrath, and I got them all like hanging in my room thing.
Nice.
They're really cool. It's like for some reason like those are like my three favorite. So I felt like I should buy those. I mean, like I like the other ones, but those three are just like I feel the most nostalgic with them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, nostalgia is a funny thing too. Like during Cataclysm, the entire time during Cataclysm, I was like, "Oh, this is the worst expansion. I hate this expansion so much. God damn it, Blizzard, this is so terrible." And then like now in this podcast, I'm like, "Man, the raids in Cataclysm, the encounters were so good." Like,
Yeah.
okay. At some point, I have to tell myself, you know what? This is just rose-colored goggles. You don't remember how much you hated heroic Ragnaros, and how the difficulty curve in Firelands was awful, and how you had people quit the guild over the Rhyolith, the Stompy guy, because they kept hot-fixing the way that he worked, and you couldn't figure out. Like, you forget all the things that you hate, and you just remember the things that you like.
Yeah.
But currently, you remember all the things that you hate, and it's easy to forget the things that you like because you kind of take it for granted. So, yeah.
It's really true. Because I think even with like anything, like it's like that with TV shows or movies or anything, you go back and you watch, you're like, man, I love this show 10 years ago, and you watch it again, you're like, this show sucks. It's like, why did I like this?
Yeah.
It's almost the same. Like I really enjoyed when for April Fools this year they did the Molten Core.
Yeah.
Again, and then everyone doing it's like, oh my god, this is so boring. There's so much trash. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. This is like 8 hours of trash.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like really the 10 years celebration in a lot of ways was sort of like, all right, you guys, you keep saying that the game was the best when it was classic. So here's what PvP was in classic, and here's what raiding was in classic. Enjoy. And everyone was like, but we hate it so much.
I remember I did the Tar and Mill too. I was like, dude, it's like Tar and Mill. It was just like groups of people killing me over and over. I'm like, all right, maybe I didn't have as much fun as I thought.
Exactly. Like it was Terran Mill versus South Shore was fun at the time because it wasn't something that had happened yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was obviously there were games like Dark Age of Camelot that had like huge like well laid out world PvP and everything. But like in WoW, if you wanted to PvP, that was the only way at the time that you could do it.
Yeah.
And as soon as Battlegrounds came out, everybody stopped doing Terran Mill versus South Shore. And it wasn't because, oh, there's something new and fancy, I should go do that. It was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Something that's actually organized and fun.
A constructed format in which I can PvP. Because
Yeah.
I remember there's like Crossroads too, like
Oh, yeah.
fights at the Crossroads. But like in my mind, I'm like, wow, it was so much fun. When in reality, I was like level like 20, and there's like level like 50s and stuff there, and I was like trying to help when really I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm doing it. And it was
Yeah.
just like if I were to go back and do that, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like not even doing anything. This is stupid.
Yeah, I remember like being level 20 at Crossroads, and there was this gnome rogue on our server that leveled up super fast and then spent his entire time like camping Crossroads. And so world PvP at the Crossroads was sometimes Warson kills you. That was it. And you'd go, oh, he's here, and you'd see this little gnome rogue sprinting away, and nobody can catch up with him because nobody can afford an epic mount because it's classic.
Yeah. Oh
And-
my god. I took
yeah.
me forever to even get my normal mount.
Yeah.
I just remember like I was level like 43 and I still didn't have my normal mount. I'm like, I just want to get it.
Yeah, on my dual wield protection warrior, I was like, all right, I'm gonna get my normal because it was level 40. You got it. I was like, I'm gonna grind the turtles in Dust Wallow because they drop a gray that vendors for more gold than anything else in the game. So they're at about that level range, and I can kill them as my dual wield protection warrior. And this way, by the time I hit level 40, I was like level 38 when I started doing this. By the time I hit level 40, then I'll have enough money for my mount, and this will work out perfectly. 6 levels later, like, I'm still grinding these stupid turtles. Like, oh my god.
One day it's gonna happen.
Yeah. And getting there, of course, you didn't have a mount. So.
Yeah. It's like those things. It's like you look back on it and you're like, yeah, that was cool because like I earned what I got, but then you realize how boring it was at the same time.
Yeah, like how many times I went, how much do I really like this game? So, should I just cancel this? Oh, I've already paid my monthly sub, so I guess I should keep playing.
I got nothing else to do and my friends are playing. Let's just keep doing.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of grinding. I remember leveling and I hit like level 57 and I ran out of quests to do. And so I was like, I guess I just gotta grind for a bit. And I was just grinding and grinding. And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
I remember my friend like logged on my account to help me level. Just when I went to school. I'd come back and be like, nice, dude. And he's like, yeah. And I like paid
I got
him,
you
like,
3 bubbles.
Oh my, like leveling back then too, like the 50 to 60 was like so long.
It's so bad, yeah.
Like that alone was like leveling from 70 to 80 or 80 to 90. Because that was like all there was. It's like 1 to 60 and then it's like, all right. But I don't know. You still think back on it and you're like, that was fun.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. But it was. But it wasn't.
It was fun because it was something that people hadn't experienced yet.
Yeah. And it's almost like you're never going to get to do that again either, which I think a lot of people miss because, like, that's what I talk about. It's like now everything is data mined too. And so you're like, oh, I found a cool cave and there's some crazy stuff in it that nobody knows about. Now it's just like, oh, yeah, that's been data mined. That's someone found it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Someone found that months ago on the PTR. Talk to this guy and then emote at this thing and you get teleported to this place. It's really cool. Like, oh, but now it's not because I don't get to discover that.
Yeah. And I think that's something everyone misses is that, like, that exploration and discovery of, you know, and I don't think they'll ever be able to recreate that. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's like, it's actually interesting how WoW has had that major impact on MMOs in general now. Like, it's actually really hard in any MMO to get that sort of like sense of wonder and, oh my god, this world is so big and huge and everything, there's so much going on here, I could never possibly comprehend all of it, because then you go on, like, Zam will come out with a database site for it in beta, and you're like, okay, now you can comprehend everything there is to know about this game.
It's like, okay.
We have bred our own demise.
And with that, that's we should probably end it, because I mean, I'm talking for a little over an hour now.
Yeah.
So on that sad, depressing note, why don't you tell everybody again where they can find you and stuff?
You can find me on Twitter at Devilore, and my official Blizzard stuff is at CM_lore. Find me on Twitch TV. I've been streaming as much as I can lately. I'm flying out to Prague tomorrow, so I won't be streaming for a few days. But I've been streaming as much as I can on twitch.tv/Devilore. I guess that's the important stuff, is you can find me in those 2 places. If you can see me, because I'm invisible.
Now I'll put those links in the description for lazy people like myself. What are you streaming lately?
I've been streaming. I've been leveling a couple characters in Battlegrounds recently. I've been playing my rogue a bunch. Just doing like I've gotten into doing just for fun Battlegrounds. Like I don't care if I actually get anything out of it. I just want to have some fun in some Battlegrounds, which is cool.
Yeah.
And I've also been playing a lot of Destiny lately. So when I'm playing that, I'll generally stream that as well.
All right. Excellent. Party on, Garth.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for joining me. And you're a block of ice.
Am.
A solid block of ice. I'm always really bad at ending these things, so I kind of just make it really awkward. All right, yeah. I'm gonna zoom in here. All right, here we go. Yeah. See ya.